What is happening, everyone? Nathan coming at you with some Teal Mask content here today. Of course, as soon as I saw the new shit that was coming out, all the abilities, new moves, all this crazy new stuff, like a kid in a candy shop, like a, looking for a new toy. I've mixed metaphors already, but I just thought, let's apply all this and see what changes when we look at it in the lens of almost any ability. Because if you want to see, Toxic Chain is cool and all, great, cool new ability, but you think to yourself, boy, what would be like the coolest application of this possible? That's where AAA comes in when you look at a new Pokemon like Monkey Dory and you think, okay, this Pokemon is so close to being awesome. If only it's something to really unlock its potential, or Ursaluna or whatever. AAA is where it comes in strong. And we're going to be talking about here today, of course. I divided everything new that's kind of hitting the tier with this DLC into 4 categories that we can talk about. First things first, let's do the most interesting thing out of all 4 categories, which is the brand new Pokemon. Talk about abilities that might suit them a little bit better. Ursaluna Blood Moon, very excited for everyone who hasn't seen it already. Mind's Eye is already a great ability, so it's one of those things where in AAA, you typically want to get the Pokemon who are great and held back by their ability in order to really make them blow up in this tier. And Mind's Eye is pretty awesome when you hit ghost types and stuff like that. I have Normalized here as a funny one where you just, make your Blood Moon a nuke. You don't even need any other moves at that point. Just, you're going to hit so hard. You have that crazy special attack stat. It's pretty much just like a Drampa with a really strong normal type move. So that's why, something like Normalized, making it 20% more powerful. So now we're hitting 170-ish base power on this thing off of that special attack. Pretty cool. I've got Calm Mind and Moonlight here because there's nothing else you're really going to use. But Choice Specs would work too. Other possibilities are just off the top of my head. Pixelate, sure, why not? Tinted Lens, once again, kind of leaning into normal isn't that great of an attacking stat, and Mind's Eye, again, it's kind of redundant because Mind's Eye is also a really good ability for countering that weakness of normal types. But Tinted Lens is great too. We're gonna be able to smoke like any steel type that would swap into it. Really, realistically, if you get a Tinted Lens and a Blood Moon off, you're getting a kill, and with your bulk, it's gonna be really hard for somebody to kill you in return. So if you get this off, you're just kind of guaranteed to kill as long as you don't have a ghost type, which is a pretty big caveat, but fun idea to discuss there. Next, we got Pheasantipity here. And actually, I think this is probably, if you put a gun to my head, I think I might say that this has the highest chance of being relevant just because there's so much ridiculous offense in this tier already. And I've already seen Drampa just kind of be good, not great in this tier. I can just see that Pheasantipity doing a little bit better. Because it's just a good Spadef Mon. It could probably be a really great Regen Vester. Those that don't know, Regen Vest is just, well, it's exactly what the name implies. Assault Vest plus Regenerator. Kind of, they work hand in hand because the worst thing about Assault Vest is that you don't get recovery. So you can't use utility moves on your defensive Pokemon. Regenerator kind of counters that. You can come in and pivot, U-turn, and go to your even stronger physical attacker, which in a tier like almost any ability is really important because, that thing's going to stand a long, protracted battle against it. But having a pivot that can come in, tank hit with the Assault Vest, regenerate it off in turn, and then you turn to a stronger Pokemon that matches up against it cleanly. That's pretty big. That was really fast. I'm sorry. I've been recording a lot lately, so sometimes I can speak too fast. That was a bit much. I apologize. Poison Berry, interesting typing, not necessarily amazing, but it's definitely has some cool matchups. Walling fighting types in this tier is always amazing. One of these types is good for that, but both is pretty great. And yeah, Corrosion, spread some status, go ham, pivot back out. Nothing wrong with that. Okie dokie, like, there's a couple of these where I feel like there's definitely something I'm missing. This is something, I said a million times I love streaming this tier because as I'm team building, my chat just like goes, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And they throw out a million cool suggestions and I go, oh my gosh, that's incredible. So I'm hoping in making this video, some people will leave some comments and suggest things that I could try out or some synergies I'm missing here. I came back to Tough Claws. Adaptability would be good. I thought Tough Claws just because Knockoff and Thunder Punch are great coverage too. I'm sure I'm missing something, and it's gonna be a fine Pokemon with a good attack stat and good speed tier. I don't think you're gonna be in a pinch if you're using this in almost any ability. Good physical bulk too, but it just seems like a worse Great Tusk. If you don't, we'll get to it later, but Great Tusk got unbanned. So I don't know, it just doesn't quite have that sauce. Maybe there's a perfect synergistic ability that I'm missing here, but I think it's gonna be just short of being a great threat. Sinistra, I'm probably mispronouncing that, but Triage and Machagacha seems like the first thing that applied to my mind. People just do choice specs with this alone. Great special attack stats. You're hitting really hard with a really strong priority move, kind of similar to Drain Punch, which is a chance to burn too. Recovers a huge amount of health too. So I think just this alone is going to be pretty strong. Strength Sap is also a great thing to have as priority. It's going to weaken your opponent and heal you at the same time. You know, I threw in Hex because it's only a little bit weaker than Shadow Ball. Probably stupid, doesn't matter, because Machagacha's burn chance is pretty small, but I don't know, I threw it in there as a random one-off. If this thing's defenses were a little bit better, it's good, but not fantastic, or its speed was better, I could see this thing becoming a huge threat. But I guess the speed doesn't matter with that triage I just mentioned. But if it had higher speed, you could take advantage of a set like this a little bit better, like Toxic Chain plus Scald and Machagacha, which gives you a really high chance of spreading status on every pretty strong attack, and you can hex it after the fact, but almost certainly too slow to make this really effective. Whereas this, again, I do think it will be good, and you're probably just running Choice Specs Triage to take advantage of it because there's not much else in terms of priority. But I don't know. We're just throwing out ideas at this point. Nasty Plot, maybe. Nasty Plot into Machagacha with like a Life Force, that would be pretty... I missed that it had that. Definitely over Calm Mind. Okay, interesting. Next we got Monkey Dory. First blush, I thought this thing's gonna be ass, but it's just like a worse Gengar. But Gengar was banned. It's been unbanned recently, but you know, if you look at this thing, if Gengar does once again get banned, it could fill a similar niche that saw Pokemon like a Namorous ban, that filled all these Pokemon banned were just you're fast, extremely strong, special attacker, Life Orb, Sheer Force, really good. Psychic, Sludge Wave, Focus Blast is great coverage on the entire cast. Of course, you gotta hit a Focus Blast, which is pretty scary. Unlike those Pokemon, it could also pivot out with a Parting Shot, which is a fantastic pivot move. And, you know, U-turn would be a great thing for it to have, which it actually does. But it would just, that would be good to begin with. But Parting Shot is also going to disadvantage. I think I was right the first time. Disadvantage the Pokemon swapping in to attack you. If this thing was like 115 speed, it would be insane. It would go crazy. It'd be insane, unstoppable. But this is about the same speed tier as a Namorous already hit. Slightly worse offensive typing, but I could see this thing actually definitely having a role, maybe once the metagame settles in a little bit. Then we go to the Ogerpon line here. There's a couple different ways to go about it for sure. I think this will have a niche. You know, Power Up and Ivy Cudgel are a good offensive, you know, pair moves to pair. Really strong. Defensive typing, I don't see a lot of people talking about this. Actually, really, really good as far as defensive typing goes. You're weak to flying, sure, and you know this is gonna be. I keep mentioning little one-offs like this, but Dragonite was also unbanned with its priority Aerialate Extreme Speed, which is extremely threatening and extremely controlling. Once again, I don't think that'll last terribly long. So in a Dragonite metagame, maybe a flying type weakness is pretty bad, but otherwise, I think it's actually gonna be pretty solid all in all. Its defenses are okay, you know, enough to be a very good bulky attacker. You're not going to be this crazy wall or anything. But you pair that with Synthesis, you pair that with U-turn as a pivot move, and you're also sort of weak to what am I missing? What am I missing? I don't think poison. I know it is poison. It is poison, and you're also weak to rock. Which, yeah, if you have to choose 3 moves to be weak to, that's not bad at all, and you're pretty neutral against the rest of the cast. You resist a lot of really big stuff like Fairy and Bug. Not that big. But still, I could actually see this Pokemon being pretty solid. It's a Pokemon that doesn't look too immensely threatening from Team Preview here. Adaptability is a pretty lame and bland ability to throw on this thing, but it's the only 2 attacks you need, so it suits it pretty well if that's the case. You could also do Chlorophyll, I was thinking. So you have Solar Blade and Ivy Cudgel. Both can be really powerful in the sun. You have Knockoff. Spikes, I just threw on just to like have a chance to talk about it. If we're talking about Ogerpon being a decently good defensive Pokemon with its bulk and pivoting capabilities, it gets U-turn, right? Yeah. Well, it's on the set. What am I saying here? Spikes, Spiky Shield. I could see Spikes finding a role in this. Knockoff is just a good like generic coverage move, maybe instead of Ivy Cudgel. So I can totally see that getting a lot of usage. And yeah, maybe Chlorophyll is something that gets some run. You know, you got to always be a little bit careful with weather in AAA because there's so many primordial seas and desolate lands running around. It's only going to become more common as Barraskewda gets flip turned back, but cool to see. Ogerpon Wellspring, say that 10 times fast. You know, I feel like offensively, it's just worse than Hearth, and defensively too, honestly. Like, Grasswater is a fine defensive typing, but I don't think it's anything to truly write home about. You kind of both hit, you know, if it had good ice coverage, maybe I could talk myself into it. So just use this as an opportunity to talk about, you know, Leech Seed, Spike, Spiky Shield, and U-turn. I feel like you would use the fire variant if that was the case, but sure. On the other hand, well, maybe you use a swim set pretty effectively, and kind of similar to Ludicolo. I think Grass Water is kind of a mid defensive typing, but offensively it's once again solid. You can use Power Whip to handle the bulky waters that might swap in on your very strong Ivy Cudgels. You have good coverage. You can pip it out. Sure. I think you have knockoff on the set too. Yep. So sure, maybe. The rock version Cornerstone I really struggled with. I guess you could go Rocky Payload and just have an extremely powerful Ivy Cudgel. Maybe you throw a choice band on this thing. Totally could be good. You know, that's a 2 times boost to your stab. Essentially just adaptability. I don't know why you want to run at adaptability, but here we are. I was really just struggling to think of something there. And then same goes for regular Ogre Pond. Maybe this is the Pokemon you use Grassy Surge on, and you throw Grassy Glide on like a choice banded Sarude with adaptability, and that way its Grassy Glide power nerf is mitigated a little bit here. For those that don't know, it got dropped down and powered down to 55. So yeah, maybe use have a Grassy Surge themed team and then build a team around that. It's a stretch for sure. And again, why not just use a fire variant if that's the case? I have a better defensive typing. I don't know. I'm doing my best out here. I'm fighting for my life. And then Dipplin, you know, I look at it and I go, okay. I'm not sure if this is live on Showdown, but I've read that it's going to be getting an evolution at some point soon. So Eviolite does currently work on it. Very cool. We can throw on a body aspect, give this thing a boost to its defenses too. Very cool. It's already got 110 defense off of 80 HP. So this thing is going to be a defensive monster with Recover and Dragon Tail for like a utility move. If this thing had Stealth Rocks or even something as basic as a Leech Seed, I could see this thing actually having some usage, or even if it had a better defensive typing. But it's sadly there's nothing that could, or body press. It's like something to work off this really imposing physical defensive stat, but there's nothing here. There's nothing here. Like Rest Sleep Talk might be your best bet. You already Recover. Recover is the only good thing it's got going for it defensively at all. So it's just, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. It's too bad. This thing is, you know, it's about 1 or 2 elements away from being very interesting, but it's not there right now. So it's a new Pokemon. Let's talk about Pokemon that are returning to AAA from the, just returning Pokemon. Darkrai is illegal in the tier, like technically. It has been quick banned. They thought, you know, I'm never mad when a council of a tier does something like this. Let's try the Pokemon out. Let's see how it does. If it's ban worthy, fine, no harm, no foul. Just 1 or 2 days of chaos. Sheer Force Life Orb. I think it'll be a bit of a theme on this video. Just Sheer Force and Life Orb it's insane on Nidoking, who has got what, 90 special attack? I don't even know. And not much speed. Throw that on a Darkrai and Dark Stab, Focus Blast for coverage, Nast, like we've seen enough. But what I think is the most exciting and interesting addition to AAA is the buffs to Empoleon. This thing has been getting a bit of gas in like standardized formats, but I think when you take it to AAA, it becomes extremely exciting for 2 reasons. One, it's very mediocre ability can be countered. So you can do something like Magic Guard, Steel Beam. Probably silly. Magic Guard is great on a lot of defensive Pokemon like Clefable, of course. I think Empoleon's a poor candidate just because it doesn't care about burns. It can't be toxic unless there's a corrosion Pokemon, so it just doesn't really, who cares? You can run Levitate, makes its excellent defensive typing absurdly good. And then you can really, as a pivot, like take advantage of Roost and Flip Turn and Stealth Rock and Knockoff, like literally all new moves here. Maybe not Stealth Rock, actually definitely not Stealth Rock, but just fantastic. Like I could see this becoming instantly usable. And this is where we'll talk about the second thing that becomes really interesting about this Pokemon in almost any ability is it's a very coveted defensive typing. Once again, we're running with this theme right now. An unbanned Pokemon who might not last long, and maybe it will thanks to Empoleon here, is Walking Wake. It was quick banned with its introduction just because of the simplicity of, it might seem weird because it doesn't do anything that unique or synergistic, but it's just the basic fact that the tier is really ill-suited to deal with water dragon coverage. A lot of Regen Vestors were quite weak to that combination. I put out actually a YouTube short on this video. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but it was a very, very like specifically geared to beat almost any ability Pokemon Walking Wake was. And then Empoleon coming out of nowhere is very, very specifically geared to counter that Pokemon. So we have Regen Vest here too. Oh no, we don't have Embody Aspect. that actually, I'm not sure if this will last. It seems very, very, very good. But you could also just do Regen Vest, and instead of Roost and Stealth Rock, throw on 2 more moves. I think it's Spadef and Body Aspect are probably enough that you don't need to do that. And defensive typing is good enough that you're fine. But Regen Vest will always find usage. Manaphy. So here's a good chance for me to talk about Embody Aspect, Teal, and Attack. You know, so let's talk about Embody Aspect right now for this opportunity. It's just a weird inclusion, almost an ability at the moment right now, because of course it is form specific to Ogerpon. And it just, you know, it's maybe controversial that any other Pokemon could have it in the first place. It's kind of like throwing on Battle Bond on Komodo. Like, are we sure? And I don't blame anyone for trying it. It's possible, so we can at least give it a shot here. But also, just more importantly, like any ability that just gives a Pokemon a straight up flat boost to something is going to be kind of broken. It's kind of like Old Intrepid Sword, just clearly not fit for the tier. And we did already see Embody Aspect Teal, and I forget the name, but the attack variant, they've already been banned. Totally, like, yeah, so we're just talking about Intrepid Sword here, and even better Intrepid Sword in Teal here. And Manaphy was a disgusting abuser of it. It was the quickest quick ban of all of these, the Teal, because you just Tail Glow, Embody Aspect, and you're fast as hell, you're strong as hell, Surf, Energy Ball, Psychic, GG. I think Manaphy will still be good. You know, we're talking a lot about Regen Vest Pokemon. This will be a great one once again in that Walking Wake sort of idea here. I think it's got a pivot move. That's right. U-turn. Great. Knockoff. Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure it's definitely a theme. Love or hate Regenerator spam in this tier. It's super good, and it's going to keep high tempo games going, let you get your Pokemon in because you can just pivot out without burning a turn to recover. So this is another example of that right here in Komodo, Rocky Helmet. Pretty much the set that was really good in Sword and Shield. Awesome. We're just going to throw a Generator on that. Take the one weakness of this really good set, and it's mitigated. Komodo, though, is also very famous in this tier for running Belly Drum, Triage, Drain Punch. I'm sure it will be effective with that. Kind of one of those reasons why you really want to run either Dazzling, like an anti-priority Pokemon, which is also really good on Pokemon like Chien-Pao, who is legal in this tier, where you can just kind of, you know, it's so fast to begin with. The best way to deal with a Chien-Pao is priority. Great, I'm immune to priority too. Plus, I can serve as just like a hard wall to a Pokemon like this Komodo, because Komodo's not going to cover any other fighting coverage here. So now Chien-Pao's 4x fighting weakness is essentially like nullified against this specific Komodo here. So it's very cool. But you can also run Unaware. It seemed like Unaware is becoming more and more common with all the crazy setup sweepers in this tier, which would also, of course, really do a number on Komodo like this. Mandibuzz, going to be solid. You can either run a Cornerstone or whatever Spadef one to improve its defenses. We do have, once again, Dragonite running around crazy, so Foul Play, Toxic, definitely going to be handy. More Hazard Control is definitely appreciated in this tier. It's going to match up well versus Golden Go, who, the theme of this live, people are probably ready to fight me right now for just repeating the same shit over and over, but Golden Go is legal right now, and actually, I don't think it ever was banned. Okay, I'm safe. I'm safe from getting punched. Because Golden Go never was banned. No. I'm full of shit, it was. It totally was, because it did too much shit correctly. I can check here. There was a whole... It was voted to keep banned. Okay. I should probably just stop talking about all the banned and unbanned Pokemon so much and just refer to this. This is how the council voted for now, at least. Okay. That's interesting. This was an obvious one. Surprised that this was so strongly against it, while Gengar was safe. But apparently there's thought to be more Pokemon that can handle Gengar currently than there was when it got banned. Okay, anyways, I was about to go on a whole diatribe about how it handles Golden Go fine, but this last minute should be me guessing and second guessing and triple guessing myself. Gengar, so Gengar is an interesting poster child for something in this, you know, in this new crop of Pokemon returning, which is just, there's a lot of Pokemon that are good coming back in Teal Mask that you would then automatically assume are going to be good in AAA, but not so much because they're Pokemon that are good because of their abilities. So what do I mean by that? I mean, a Pokemon like Clefable, like the fact that it has Magic Guard and Unaware is a huge part of why it's so viable, and I don't think it'll be terrible in almost any ability, but like, and there's probably a slightly better ability you can give it, but it's kind of just a bit of right? Like Crawdon, great example. Why is it so good? Water, Dark, adaptability, boom, done. But it's probably already got one of the best abilities you could have to take advantage of itself. So, who else is a good example from a returning Pokemon here? Infernape isn't going to be good, period. Jirachi we'll talk about. Mamoswine we'll talk about. Mineshao's a great one. Why is Mineshao so good? Regenerator and Reckless are both awesome. So like, sure, adaptability is probably a little bit better on it, but it's not going to make any major waves. The buff it's receiving with a great ability is lesser than everyone else. Ursaluna we talked about a little bit. That arguably falls into that category. I guess those are the main ones, but you get the idea. There's just a lot of Pokemon that, you know, you'd think Clefable will be much more powerful in AA than it really is. It's mostly just a factor of it already having an excellent ability. Calculator comes back. Triage Drain Punch. It's good. It's Iron Hands at home pretty much. Mamoswine. You know, Chien Pao's in the tier. Weavile got a big buff, some new abilities. This thing's much slower than both of those and about the same power, so it's hard to imagine it going crazy. You know, I saw this floated on the forums, Icicle Spear and Ice Shard. I can see that being pretty cool. I think it had that last generation, though, so it's not like it's anything new or groundbreaking. And actually, we'll take this opportunity to just say that, like, the forums that are upkept for almost any ability, it's literally just one page on the Smogon forums. They're doing so much with so little. Very great. I'm talking a lot about this stuff right now like an expert. I've been playing AA for months. I really haven't. I just, in preparation for this video, kind of skimmed the forums for the last, month and a half. And yeah, it's well posted, it's well kept. Great shout out to the mods. I believe it is Isaiah and I believe Talonflame fan is there somewhere. Good name Cat. I stole some stuff from them too. Viewer of the channel. UT, that's what I'm thinking of. They're doing a great job with the tier. So shout outs to both of them. Moving on though, we got Jirachi, another good regenerator Pokemon. If you're rolling your eyes, we'll have some more heat coming up soon here, I promise. Chandelu's an awesome Life Guard, Magic Guard candidate. There's a couple Pokemon. We've talked about Life Orb, Sheer Force, which is really cool, of course. But Life Orb, Magic Guard's a little bit more of a balanced build. Lets you handle hazards, of course. Lets you get free heavy-duty boots, free status immunity on a special attacker like this. I guess not with paralyzation. Words are struggling for me today. What? Do I need to turn off this video? What am I talking about? Still. Great candidate. I think if there was a UU to AAA, this would be an awesome Pokemon for it. Just doesn't quite have the power to hang with even like that new Pokemon we saw earlier, the Psychic Poison one. Just doesn't have the same, oomph. Chandelure doesn't have the same oomph as some of the crazier special attackers in the tier, but just solid. Just a really solid Mon. I just gotta shout it out because it's just a cool synergy that we like to see. Unbanned Pokemon. I've been referring to it the whole video, and we already saw the list here, but these Pokemon are currently allowed in the tier. Walking Wake was just, again, you didn't have to be fancy with it. You didn't have to run like Mega Launcher, Dragon Pulse, Water Pulse. You didn't have to be clever. Just Beads of Ruin, Life Orb, Magic Guard. Just go to work, right? And it was just really good for handling all the tier's best special defensive threats. Gengar, Life Orb, Sheer Force, great abuser. It's fast, good move pool, strong special attacker. Enough said. Dragonite. I think this Pokemon's such an interesting Pokemon from the idea that balance-wise, in most OU tiers, it's just the perfectly balanced. It's just solid, good, nothing much to say about it. Multi-scale's awesome. But if you give it a little bit of extra something, oh, here's a Terra Sterilization normal. Oh, here's an Aerolate. Oh, here's a this, like just a little bit of, one notch better in something, it instantly becomes insanely broken. Sharp Beak, Aerolate, Extreme Speed. It's just really, really freaking strong, man. Just having that much priority off of that powerful of an Aerolate. There's a reason why. It's not just Triage is the reason why we're running so much anti-priority stuff in the tier right now. Great Tusk was a Pokemon that was never really broken in AAA. It's just a good example of being unbelievably centralizing. This is an offensive set right here, actually. It's kind of just what we see about Great Tusk in OU plus 20%, if that makes any sense. Just a little bit, the same thing as always does, the same role, the same discussions, just a little bit better because it's AA, of course, and you have to have that, built-in power creep. This is the main abuser, of course, can also run leftovers, can also run Rocky Helmet, can do other stuff. But just, yeah, amazing defensive force, finds its way on almost every team, shuts down a lot of Pokemon. It does also run offensive sets well. So if you're, you know, playing against the Great Tusk, expecting to see a defensive set, you can surprise them with some offensive stuff. Sword of Ruin is the best for it offensively on paper, but in terms of that surprise set, perhaps not. So maybe you can run something like Tough Claws instead if you want to take advantage of that, you know, surprise power and really ruin somebody's day. But it was banned mostly for being over centralizing instead of being necessarily too powerful or broken or OP. Remains to be seen if that will happen again, I guess. Yeah, pretty cool. And then we're going to move on to the new look AA Pokemon. And this is the category that I'm just saying, you know, we're already in the tier. There's been a lot of new moves, a lot of new abilities, and a lot of new shit that has been thrown in to make these Pokemon have exciting new possibilities. And I'm sure people in the comments are going to have like really cool new ideas and be like, oh my gosh, what if you threw Toxic Chain on, well, I've got Mousehold here. Silly, probably not going to be very good, but guaranteed Toxic while being strong at the same time. Dumb, but I don't know, just funny stuff. I'm sure you guys will think of more effective stuff than I have. Make sure to comment below if you have one. Goodra, already good assault, a regen kind of Pokemon here. Gets knockoff and scald. Great. Goodra Hisui also gets scald too, but not knockoff, which is cool. Baxcalibur getting a ton of gas in OU right now for getting Scale Shot, which will help its speed, which is one of its bigger problems. Combines awesomely with Swords Dance too. Already running loaded dice a lot of the time to take best advantage of Icicle Spear, so just run adaptability. That's all you need, I guess. Again, maybe you could run like a, you know, a skill link and then a choice band or like a life orb. I went for the other way around with loaded dice and then an offensive boosting ability, just because I feel like I'd rather have a no, you know, like life orb is a big drawback. So I don't know. I feel it's like pick your poison with skill link and life orb, you know, on how you want to split those two. But cool regardless. We talked about Mousehold. Barraskewda, you know, it's always been good with Choice Band Primordial Sea. Its speed tier is enough that it doesn't really need the boost in rain. You can just hang fine as is, especially in a tier without Dragapult. But then you had Flip Turn, so you're pivoting in and out to other Pokemon. Very, very good. Torterra gets Shell Smash and Headlong Rush and a bunch of new shit. I guess I didn't throw an ability on this yet. I really would like some help with this one. I was racking my brain on the best abuser for this possible. And again, I'm sure there's something clever to it. You know, I was thinking Thick Fat weirdly because it helps with two of its weaknesses. But this is an offensive Pokemon. You don't want to be hanging around defensively speaking, especially if you're running Headlong Rush and Woodhammer. You're not in this for a long time. You're in it for a good time. So, Supreme Overlord and do this at the end of a game. Should have done this before I recorded the video. I don't do Unburden so it gets even faster. Stupid. I just well-baked body, maybe. They could a little bit more defensive prowess. Probably do that before I did Thick Fat. Because, you know, you already have a double weakness to ice, so you don't need the other side of that from Thick Fat. Oh boy. I'm frustrated. I feel like there's something more here. There's some meat on the bone for sure. No guard, neutralizing gas. I mean, if nothing else, this would probably be a not terrible candidate for Dazzling to prevent priority. It can be very fast after you get up your Shell Smash. I'm going to say maybe that's my answer for now. You could even do a Grim Neigh. I don't think that'd be terrible. Damn. Well, we'll leave that there. Tyranitar gets a knockoff. I didn't even... I tried for a little bit to think of something clever with this Mon, but like... It's just not a great almost any ability Pokemon. There's a lot of reasons why. It's just not fantastic. So I guess if you put a gun to my head, adaptability, knockoff, Stone Edge, great. Chien-Pao we talked about, but it also got Lash Out, which is cool. Lash Out is only 5 power weaker than Crunch, which is its best move otherwise. And Intimidate Corviknight is the best counter to Chien-Pao in the tier right now. So it's just kind of like, you know, the rich get richer. Just a cool move too. I don't even know if there's a ton of Intimidate going around after this has been released, but it's very neat to see everything else. Cerulege gets Poltergeist, making it an amazing adaptability abuser. You can already use it to great effect for Bitterblade and Shadow Sneak, but now Poltergeist just means this thing is a nuke that's going to have a really hard time being walled. Azelf gets Expanding Force back, which means Psychic Surge and Expanding Force from last generation. Amazing combination off of great special attack and speed. It's going to go to a town. Of course, there is a lot of our Gen Best users in the tiers. I've mentioned a million times here so far, but Still a cool addition to see. We have Roaring Moon here getting knockoff. You know, same boring Roaring Moon set, just better, I guess. You can do Tough Claws. You can do all kinds of shit to this too. I have always been partial to this tier, to a defensive regenerator set. I did the boring Assault Vest regenerator here too, but it also has a Roost. So you could do Roost plus, you could very easily go like Duty Boots, Special Defense, and then Earthquake is kind of like a weird inclusion anyways. I almost like this better than what we just had there. There's so much like Regen Vest in the tier already. You don't need to waste it on this mon. Very good. The problem is, of course, it was really good for handling Golden Go, who's not in the tier right now, as I took great lengths to discover. But I've always had a soft spot for it. It's just, its def is weirdly good. 100/100. That's great. And Dark type offensive typing isn't terrible in this tier with all the ghosts. You know, maybe this will get a rise in prominence with more Psychic offensive mons running around and more Ghost offensive mons running around. So true, there's no Golden Go, but the new additions might balance that out. Samurai Hisui. I don't know why I included this. You could have done this a long time ago. Oh, it got flip turn. That's why. Okay, sure. If you were going to run an Assault Vest Regenerator Samurai Hisui, similarly good defensive typing as this Roaring Moon here, but also as spikes, this is a better way to do it with flip turn and knockoff. So sure, slightly better in this specific kind of role. Zapdos gets Weather Ball back, so you can run these Primordial Sea sets, where it's kind of a do-it-all offensive mon. Pretty cool to see. And Iron Valiant gets Vacuum Wave, so you can do a Technician choice specs, you know, throw Focus Blast on there too. Why not? Cool stuff. So those are the major additions as far as I could tell. I'm sure I missed some. Those are the main ones I could tell from scouting the forums and scouting through Pokemon Showdown myself. A lot of cool stuff here. I'm sure we'll see some even more cool stuff posted in the comments below. Can't wait to see what you guys cook up. I think I will at least give this tier a solid try for a little while, because a lot of stuff does have me very interested. And the tier was in a good place before these things came into effect. I don't know if any of this is going to change that. So, you know, even the most skeptical, the biggest hater of AAA possible, would say that the tier's greatest advantage is like the novelty and the fun and the imaginativeness. And when a new metagame drops is the best time for that. So I could probably see myself playing this a little bit this week at least. Maybe more if the meta really catches on and ends up being great. So thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you next time. Take it easy.